The appetizer is potentially the most important course to any meal. After all, if you can't get that right, my guess is you probably can't get the main entree right either. I'm gonna show you 3 of my favorite appetizers that are absolutely jam-packed with flavor and are simple to prepare. Creamy spinach and artichoke dip that is loaded up with cheese, honey, soy, garlic, bacon wrapped shrimp going with the sriracha mayonnaise dipping sauce, and last but not least, brie that is baked in homemade puff pastry with a sour cherry jam, candied pecans, and a bourbon caramel. Yeah, these are gonna be real good. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. Sound good? Let's cook. Now, because these appetizers are pretty easy to make, we're gonna move through them pretty quickly, so hold on tight. We're gonna first start off with 5 ounces of fresh baby spinach. This is essentially the size of that plastic package that it comes in the grocery store, so you don't have to weigh anything out on a scale. What we wanna do is just roughly chop this.
And this does not have to be perfect in any way. Once it's done being roughly chopped, we're gonna add it to a medium-sized bowl. I've also got 2 finely minced garlic cloves, taking that over to the cooktop. Going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to a large rondeau pot. Next, let's add in the garlic and cook it over low to medium heat just until fragrant, which only takes about 30 to 45 seconds. At this point, we're going to add in the spinach and saute it until it becomes wilted, which only takes 90 seconds. Should look just like this. Now at this point, I'm gonna bring in a strainer and I'm gonna add the spinach right to that strainer to drain off any excess liquid. If you don't do this, your spinach and artichoke dip can be really runny, which we don't want.
It always makes me laugh how a big bunch of spinach after being cooked turns into like 3 tablespoons. It is what it is. If you wanna use frozen spinach, those usually come in 10-ounce packages. Now, the reason they are heavier is because they're still loaded up with moisture, and you will absolutely need to squeeze and drain that off, and you'll still turn into the same amount that we have here. Okay, while this is draining, we can prep up a few more things.
I'm going to grate an 8-ounce block of whole milk mozzarella cheese. This should give you about 3 cups unpacked cheese, and I also do it on parchment paper to make it really easy to transport.
And if you don't want to shred the mozzarella yourself, no sweat. You can absolutely buy the pre-shredded bag. Now I have 2 14-ounce cans of quartered artichokes. You can use whole artichokes. You may just want to cut them down a little bit. Be sure they're drained. And look, if you want to use fresh artichokes, oh my gosh, it's going to take an incredible amount of time to do that. I think the canned version is the best way to go here, specifically for time purposes. So we're going to add this to a large bowl. Next, I'm going to add in 1 cup of sour cream, followed up with 4 ounces or a half block of cream cheese. And all this is full fat, by the way. You want a lot of flavor in this. And to me, the secret is actually more mayonnaise than the other 3. So I have 1.5 cups of mayonnaise. Then we're gonna add in a half cup of grated Parmesan cheese. Then 2 cups of the shredded mozzarella. Save the extra cup aside for the top.
Then let's grab that spinach, add it right to the spinach and artichoke dip bowl. We're next going to season it up very well with a little bit of sea salt and then, of course, fresh cracked black pepper. Now, if you want a little extra zip, you can actually hit it with a few dashes of Tabasco sauce, totally up to you. Now what we want to do is fold all the ingredients until completely mixed. The artichokes will break down here. This is perfect. Also, since there's no eggs in here, taste a little bit. Does it need more salt, more pepper? You be the judge. If it's good, we're transferring it over to an 8x12 casserole dish. You could use a 13x9 and then smooth it out completely on the top.
Now you can probably tell from my spinach and artichoke recipe that's a little bit different from a lot of others in that I use a lot more mayonnaise, like I said earlier. I think there's more fat and flavor when you do that. It also makes it so much creamier. Also, I use a lot more artichokes than spinach. There's just so much more flavor in artichokes. They're so delicious. Spinach kind of just gets lost after it's chopped and wilted throughout. It's funny, like I taste more artichoke than anything else. I think that's what I love so much about it. Also, make sure your cream cheese is softened. If it's not, you're gonna have to start this off in a stand mixer by whipping it until it softens up. All right, here's how we're gonna finish this off. Remember that last cup of mozzarella cheese? We're gonna generously sprinkle it over the top. This is gonna make it cheesier and delicious. Remember I said loaded up with cheese. And then for another little twist, all right, a little more crunch. I've got about a half cup of panko breadcrumbs here. I'm gonna add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. We are gonna mix this together and add it right to the top.
You'll know your breadcrumbs are good. They'll look wet just like this. Perfect. Now evenly sprinkle them all over the top of our spinach and artichoke dip. Once it is good, we're heading right over to the oven. We're going to cook it at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to take about 30 to 35 minutes.
And don't go too far, because one of my favorite things to scoop all of that spinach and artichoke goodness up with is crostinis. So I've got a baguette. We're gonna quickly make these. We start by slicing them on a bias about a ½ inch thick.
And when I say slice on a bias, all I mean is slicing on a slight angle just like this. It's really just for aesthetics. Then we're gonna evenly spread them out on a sheet tray lined with parchment paper. You may need 2 sheet trays depending how many slices you have. Then I'm going to brush on 4 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter all over the top. This is gonna help brown them up real nice. You could use olive oil as well. Then generously season with sea salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Going over to the oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, either the bottom or middle rack. It's going to take in between 15 to 20 minutes for them to brown up and toast up. And be sure to keep an eye on these because they can turn quickly. After all that time, our spinach and artichoke dip is finished. Looks fantastic. Also, the crostinis are perfect.
Don't worry, I will for sure show you how to plate up that spinach and artichoke dip at the end. Now we're gonna do that bacon wrapped shrimp in a honey garlic soy sauce. Now the best thing you can do is purchase shrimp that are already peeled and deveined, and you wanna do at least 16-20. That means there are 16 to 20 shrimp per pound of shrimp. These are pretty big. These are 10 to 15, so they're a little bit larger, but you can use either. If you don't have peeled and deveined, here's how you do it.
Grab a piece of shrimp in one hand, and then I definitely recommend using one of these shrimp peeler and deveiner, super cheap online. Run it through at the top about 3/4 of the way back through the shrimp, hold the shell with the other hand and pull up. Then pinch the bottom legs and the shell will pull right off. Absolutely perfect. Speaking of shrimp shells, do not throw these away. Put them in the freezer. I've got an excellent shrimp bisque recipe that you can use. Then once the shrimps are peeled and deveined, we're just going to run them under cold water, get any of that gunk out of there that you don't want, set them to the side. Next, I've got 12 strips of smoked bacon. What I'm going to do is just cut them in half because we want to wrap up the shrimp next. All right, grab a piece of shrimp in one hand, grab one of those half slices, and then wrap around the center of the shrimp just like this. This is perfect. Then grab a toothpick and pierce it right through the center. Repeat this process until all the shrimp are completely wrapped in bacon and add them to a large bowl.
Shrimp are done. They look great. We're going to make a quick little marinade / sauce. I'll show you what to do with it. Very simple. We're starting with a cup of good soy sauce. Next, 3 finely minced garlic cloves. We're going to add those right in there. About a 1/4 cup of sliced green onions. Does not have to be perfect, okay? A little bit more, a little bit less, no problem. Next, mirin, which is rice wine. If you don't have rice wine or can't get it, sherry wine is great. That's dry sherry. And you know what? If you can't get wine at all, no sweat, just skip it. Next, we're gonna add in a 1/4 cup of honey. Then we are going to just give this a whisk. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add just a little bit of this sauce to the upfront, start getting those flavors running through the shrimp. Maybe just a 1/4 to a 1/3 cup of this, not all of it, reserve it for the end, okay? Then let's just toss this very gently. Remember, there's bacon wrapped around all of those shrimp and the toothpicks are in, so be very, very careful. This is going to help season it up. So we won't need to add any salt or anything like that. Don't worry, I've got a spicy dipping sauce for the end to balance everything out.
Once they are done being coated in that mixture, no need to sit and marinate. We're going over to our cooktop. I've got a large cast iron skillet, adding in 2 tablespoons of neutral flavored oil, turning the heat up to medium. After about 2 to 3 minutes of the oil heating up, we're going to add in the shrimp, but we're going to put it seam side down. We want that part of the bacon to cook and crisp up and sort of mold to the other part of the bacon so it's not flapping around. It's going to take about 2 to 4 minutes for these shrimp to cook on each side. So after 2 to 4 minutes, give them a flip. You start to see that beautiful golden brown in them. This is absolutely perfect. And then continue to cook them for 2 to 4 minutes after being flipped.
And Comies, it doesn't matter if you're cooking on cast iron or even a non-stick skillet. You want to control that heat. If you see the bacon starting to cook and burn a little bit too quickly, turn the heat down. We want to slow this process down so the bacon is crispy and the shrimp is cooked through.
You're going to need to cook these in batches, I'm guessing, because there's so many shrimp and there's just not a pan big enough. So add them all back to that cast iron skillet. Add in the remaining marinade that I told you about in the beginning. We're going to cook this over low heat for 3 to 4 minutes. Going to help the shrimp finish up cooking and add so much flavor to this. And of course, help it keep warm just a little bit. All right, set these to the side when they're done. Then I've got a sriracha mayo. I've got 1 cup of mayonnaise. I've got a great homemade recipe if you want. 1 finely minced garlic clove. We're gonna add in the juice of 1 lemon. Then 3 tablespoons of sriracha sauce. Now you be the judge here. If you like a lot of zip, add a little bit more. If you don't like it, take some away. Season it up with sea salt. Mix it until combined with a whisk or a spoon, and then of course try it out. See if you need more heat, more acid, more salt. You be the judge.
And I'll show you how to plate these up right after the next one. But first, the reason even for that shrimp recipe is because I put up a poll on Instagram and gave you 3 different options, and the honey soy garlic was the one that won. So that's what I did. Maybe I'll do that more in the future. Okay, next, I'm going to make some brie and croute. First, I'm going to transfer it over to my butcher block.
So I'm going to be using a 6-inch round double cream brie, which you can get from the cheese department in just about any grocery store. If all you can find is a 4-inch, totally fine to use it here as well.
All right, we're gonna start off with some puff pastry, and this is a homemade version. You can use frozen, totally fine. The homemade version recipe is on my website. Oh my gosh, it is so good. So I'm just gonna cut this into a third. I think that's all I'll need for this brie cooked in puff pastry.
The other 2/3 piece of the puff pastry, put it in the freezer. It freezes well. Use it for all your other recipes. All right, what we're going to do is dust a clean surface with flour. Place that 1/3 chunk of puff pastry right in the center. Then what we want to do is roll it out until it's about 16 inches by 16 inches. So a nice, perfect square should look just like this or close to it. Let's add that brie right to the center.
Now this next part is up to you a little bit. I love to use sour cherry jam. Now, if you can't find a sour cherry jam, you can use regular cherry preserves or even just a regular cherry jam. I feel like the sour flavors in there coupled with the sweet really balance out with the brie. So we are going to add about a 1/4 cup right to the top of this.
So now at this point, once it's on there, we want to wrap everything up. So grab that top left corner and fold it right over to the bottom part of the brie, and then go over and start to fold over, overlapping all the puff pastry, wrapping it up like a little bag like this. It's going to look awesome when it's cooked and sealed in tight. Now we're going to transfer it over to a sheet tray lined with parchment paper.
All right, so what we're gonna do once everything is wrapped up real nice and tight, we wanna make an egg wash, which is really just 1 egg and about a tablespoon of milk. Doesn't matter if it's whole milk, skim milk, 1%, 2%, you be the judge. Once it's whisked, all we do is brush the top. This is gonna help brown it in and help seal everything in so that the cherry and the brie isn't sort of juicing out everywhere all over the place. So let's brush the top.
And be sure to take the time to brush the top completely with this egg wash so that this brie en croute is perfectly golden brown. At this point, I'm going in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to take about 25 to 30 minutes for this to brown up and be cooked. Now let's make some candied pecans. Add a 1/2 cup of packed light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and 1 tablespoon of water to a medium-sized saute pan over low to medium heat. We're going to mix it until the butter is completely melted and you have a nice little caramel sauce. We're next going to add in 1 cup of pecans. You can use pecan halves or even pecan pieces. Then we're going to cook it for about 8 to 10 minutes. This is going to sort of toast up those pecans and make sure the caramel sets. Then what you want to do is spread the pecans all over the sheet tray so they can harden up quicker. You can also add them to the refrigerator if you want.
Okay, we're rounding third base here. The brie en croute or brie cooked in puff pastry is looking really, really good. We're just going to finish up by making a bourbon caramel. Super simple. Here we go.
Adding a 1/2 pack of light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 2 tablespoons of heavy whipped cream to a medium-sized pot over low heat. We're going to mix it until the butter is completely melted in and we have a very smooth caramel. Excellent. Remove it from the heat. Going to add in next 2 tablespoons of bourbon. You could, of course, use whiskey if you want. Mix it in and then infuse. Absolutely perfect. Set it to the side. Let's grab our brie en croute. Absolutely gorgeous, my friends. all about those fundamental cooking techniques and putting them into practice over and over again because it will always elevate your everyday cooking. Adjusting the heat when cooking the bacon and the shrimp to make sure the bacon is crispy and the shrimp is cooked through. Understanding flavors and textures so we can add more fat to that art and spinach dip and put a little crunch on top with the panko. Then combining cool things like the sour cherry jam along with the brie, the homemade puff pastry, candied pecans, you name it. Okay, so much goodness. Let's plate all of this up. I like to finish off the spinach and artichoke dip with a little chopped fresh parsley for some color. Then, of course, let's not forget to serve them up with our crostinis. Then for vegetables, I like carrots, celery, and even cherry tomatoes. Get a load of this cheesy goodness, fantastic. For the shrimp, add them to a plate or a platter. You have the option here to remove the toothpick or not. I like to take it out. I think it looks a little nicer. Grab some scoops of that sauce and pour it right over the top of the shrimp. So much extra flavor. Don't forget about that sriracha mayo. The flavor combo is amazing here. Then I'm going to garnish it with a little sliced green onions. Last, for the brie en croute, serve it on a plate or a platter. Then we're going to grab all those candied pecans, put them over the top. The flavor combination and the textures here is so good. Drizzle on that bourbon caramel on the top. Then last but not least, I've got a little bit of dried cherries. I thought that'd be a nice little touch, maybe just a half cup or so. And this, my friends, I'm telling you what, these appetizers are incredible. There's just so much flavor in each of these. I really hope you give them a try. I'm telling you what, if you do, you're gonna be the talk of the party. Now, if you love appetizers and can't get enough, definitely check out my deviled eggs recipe video. I've got 4 different kinds. You'll love it. I'll see you on there.